Week 3 of BYU spring ball is underway. What are guys that are standing out to me, and who are some of the ones that are not necessarily living up to expectations? We'll delve into that, and also a one-on-one conversation with Atunaisa Mahe on today's show.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, guys? I'm Jake Hatch, your host here on Locked On Cougars, your resident BYU insider. Thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Always appreciate you guys making us a part of your routine, no matter when you're listening to this, morning, noon, or night. Thank you for your support. We're very proud to be part of the Locked On Podcast Network. The motto is your team every day, and as such, we are your only daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. Diving right in on today's show, just a couple of things on BYU football. Obviously, they have wrapped up 2 of their 5 weeks of spring ball, and the biggest thing for spring ball for me is that BYU spring ball is a time for guys to either get off-season surgeries and recover from that, young guys to impress the coaches in spring ball practices, and then the third kind of category are guys that are new to the program, trying to go out there and essentially ingratiate themselves to their teammates, and that most notably are guys like Kedon Slovis who have transferred into the program. But I was out there on Friday as BYU was out under the, sun, you could call it, because it's actually been a pretty miserable late winter / early spring period. BYU finally getting outside on the turf just to the west, or no, it'd be the north of the student athlete building on Friday. And I was kind of plotting how I wanted to approach this Monday edition of the show. I figured, you know what we'll do? I want to talk about some of the guys who are standing out to me and maybe some of the guys who I want to see more from in the final 3 weeks of BYU spring ball. So we'll start off with the positive. Some guys that are standing out to me include Micah Harper. He had a really, really strong season last year. Many of you will recall watching number 1 really step in when Malik Moore went down with that hand injury in the 4th game of the season. Micah Harper essentially came on at that point and became BYU's star safety, and I think he's set to reprise that role. And if him and Malik Moore are going to play together in that backfield, I really, really like that tandem. They're very athletic. They're very headstrong. Head smart is what I want to say, but they're very smart and cerebral players. And they're absolutely, I think, going to make a fantastic tandem, at least as the 1-2 tandem as it looks right now for BYU going into the 2023 season. The one thing about Micah is he's fearless. He's not necessarily the biggest dude nor the tallest dude or maybe the fastest dude, but what he is he's very savvy out there, and he knows when to take risks. He had a really, really nice tackle on a fly sweep on Chase Roberts during Friday's practice. I'm really, really liking what I'm seeing from him. Also, on the defensive side of the football, I'm very impressed so far from what I have seen from the trio of Eddie Heckard, Jacob Robinson, and Maury Bamba. They've kind of been the 3 guys that have been playing cornerback, most notably with the ones during spring ball so far. And they've actually been on the field together at multiple points when BYU goes to more of a spread set. And the one thing about this is all 3 of them doing different things to the package. You got Maury Bamba, who is just this athletic marvel, 6'3", 190 pounds, and can run with the best of them. It's really, really fun to see his overall skill set and physical gifts. Whereas Jacob Robinson, he's still pretty skinny, but the thing about this is he just doesn't give up. He is relentless when he's out there on the football field. And Eddie Heckard, he is kind of the guy who is just a savvy veteran. He has played at a high level for so many years for Weber State, now making the transition to BYU. He's not intimidated by the next level, playing against Division I opponents, FBS opponents, or FBS teammates. He hasn't been dissuaded by any of that, and all 3 of them have been very good. So I guess my overall takeaway is the defensive secondary has shown some really nice things. I'm also really impressed with what Kedon Slovis has done for BYU. Is he running the offense perfectly? No, and we only see small snippets of practice as a media corps, and in talking with people who have watched the entirety of practice or practice insiders that feed us information, all they have said about Kedon Slovis he looks the part. That's the thing about this. This offense seems to suit him far better than the offense at Pitt last year. And they say that he is really, really working hard to build rapport with his teammates. We have seen that. He's actually talked about it Friday. He did an interview with the media and talked about the fact that he's excited that teammates, whenever he wants to throw or they want to throw, they just have like a little text strand. They just kind of talk back and forth, and they get out on the field and are working on route concepts and all that stuff. It's really good to see a guy like this coming in, and it's fun to see him really buckling in with his teammates. And I for one, I'm excited to see what he can do for BYU this season. We'll see. Spring ball can be a little bit of a mirage, if I'm being honest, because there are so many things about spring ball that don't necessarily translate to really any other part of the football season, so to say, the football calendar, I guess I could say about that. But the one thing I've liked about Keaton Slovis is he is saying all the right things and he continues to make plays. His backup, Cade Fennegan, we have not seen precious little of Jake Retzloff, but that's due to some complications due to a tonsil removal. It sounded like he had his tonsils taken out, got infected, according to Aaron Roderick. So unfortunate not to see him out there in large doses when we're out there for media observation. But Cade Fennegan, folks, when he's healthy, he looks the part. He's got a really, really nice understanding of this offense. He's got a decent arm. He's got good athleticism. It could very well be that he ends up being BYU's number 2 quarterback coming out of spring. And I would say right now, 2 weeks in, he absolutely is that. But Jake Retzloff still has an opportunity to really show what he can do. A couple of the notes from me is that Kingsley Suamataia has made almost a flawless transition to left tackle from what I've been able to observe with offensive linemen. Sometimes the transition going from right side to left side can be a little bit of, as I said, a transition, but he's made it look very, very natural. We're seeing a nice battle at right tackle between Lisala Tai and Braden Kime. Both of them are very, very good players in their own right. Very tall, rangy, long athletes. I think Lisala Tai ultimately will get the nod there at right tackle, in my opinion. But the nice part is the interior of BYU's offensive line, without Paul Miley available during spring ball, has been very solid. We're seeing Waylon Lapuaho, Connor Pay, and Ian Fitzgerald almost exclusively with the ones in that interior unit. So it's fun to see guys like that. But I really like what Kingsley Suamataia is showing. If he has a big season this year, it would not surprise me to see him being the 3rd straight left tackle drafted out of BYU by the NFL. It'd be an absolutely incredible run, matching really what their quarterbacks have done for the BYU football program. So those are the guys that kind of stood out to me. In terms of guys I'd like to see more from, I still want to see more from this defensive line. They have their moments, it feels like. New Leitao Selison, the transfer from Weber State, playing with the 2s on Friday, had a nice tackle for loss. It was good to see a guy like that make a play, but I want to see more from this defensive line in particular. I think they're still essentially trying to learn the whole concept and scheme. We had Caden Haas talking to the media on Friday and saying that we're no longer just 2-gapping his defensive lineman. We're actually allowed to go and make some more plays. We're essentially going to a spot and we have a responsibility. It's fun to see these guys embracing what this defense is, but I want to see more from them. I across the board. Like I said, every practice seems like 1 or 2 of those guys makes a highlight reel play during the media portion, but you want to see better, I guess, cohesive play along that front. The other thing about this is the linebacking core. It's so incomplete right now. Without Ben Bywater or Max Tooley out there, I don't think you can get a really good feel for what the linebacking core is. The future of it looks fairly bright because you're looking at the Kafusis, Ace and Micah Kafusi, who have essentially moved up the depth chart alongside Logan Peely to be playing with the 1s at linebacker. All 3 of them have their moments, but they're so young still. Logan Peely is probably the more physically capable guy who has been back working in the weight room. Only thing on Micah and Ace Kafusi for me is just that they're just a little bit skinny. That's the thing about this. And I'm not surprised by that. The guys just recently returned off of missions for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So it's not all that uncommon for them to be a little bit skinny and a little light in the rear end, as they say, but we'll see them as they hit the weight room a little bit more. I think they'll come on. The nice part is Kafusi, that last name, it's a name that should impress you because they're hard-nosed football players. Despite them being pretty skinny, they continue just to put their nose in there and go out there and do their assignment to the best of their capability. But I just want to see a little bit more from them. I also want to see a little bit more from the running back position. They get bottled up a little bit too much at times, it feels like, trying to run on the interior. Obviously, Aiden Robbins sitting out during spring ball, during the team portions. He's been doing skill development type stuff, but not doing the team portions. We don't necessarily know what he will bring once he's actually able to go full go with this team. But the other running backs, I want to see a little bit more from. We saw Soljay Mayava-Peters. He went down with a non-contact injury, but did limp off after being checked out by trainers on Friday. It's actually the first time the media we've been out there, we've seen somebody come up injured. Also, there was a cast on Parker Kingston's hand. It was you could see that on Friday. I actually saw it earlier on last week, and in talking with some people, the good news is it sounds like is it's not something that's going to require surgery. So that obviously will be something that just has to kind of wait out the period, let the bone heal up, and then get that cast off, and hopefully he'll be back in action before too long. I would assume he's probably done for the rest of spring ball, but a guy like that is a guy that you can expect will be part of this wide receiving core. And I think the bigger thing for Parker is if he can continue to show what he can do in the return game. It'd be fun to see him finally returning some punts and kicks for BYU this year. He's got all world type speed, all game breaking type speed when he gets into the open field, and hopefully the return game can open up some opportunities for him to do just that. But like I said, when it comes to my observations of spring ball, just take it and understand that spring ball can, like I said, it can be a little bit of a mirage. There have been multiple seasons where I've been out to spring ball, seeing 2 or 3 guys who I'm like, man, that guy, if they can make it to fall camp, they can make some noise. And in multiple circumstances, we get to fall camp, open up the roster, and those guys are no longer on the roster. So it's a crazy, crazy time. Most of the guys that talked about today, I would almost bet like I'd put big money on all of them being a part of BYU this fall. But at the same time, the production level can change a little bit once the bullets, quote unquote, are flying during fall camp and obviously heading into the season. But very much looking forward to seeing the rest of spring ball. We'll be out there later this week. First media observation this week is on Thursday. We'll also have an opportunity to be out at BYU Pro Day on Friday, and then they will have media availability after a closed scrimmage on Saturday. So kind of the layout of how things are looking for the rest of the week, media-wise, for BYU football. All right, coming up next, we're going to stick with football. Had a great opportunity recently to catch up with BYU defensive lineman Naisa Mahe. I mentioned the fact I want to see more from the defensive line. Well, Naisa is one of those guys that I think can really be a big impact player for BYU if he can realize his potential, stay healthy, and show his capability during this upcoming season. We'll get to that conversation here in just a moment. First, a word on our friends over at Built Bar. They've been taking part in March Madness, as we all have. What an incredible weekend of basketball around the country. But the Built March Madness bracket is here, and they've done this annually for the past few years. We know all of you out there, if you have had a Built Bar, you probably have a favorite bar or puff. Well, now is your time to represent and go and vote for it in the Built Bar March Madness bracket. Go to builtmarchmadness.com to cast your vote for your favorites right now. The best part is this gives you an opportunity to sound off on what the best Built Bar is. They have a winner every single day when it comes to that bracket, and the ultimate winner, we'll find out what it is here in a few weeks' time. But the best part is right now, 50 lucky Locked On listeners get a chance to win a free box of Built when you go to builtmarchmadness.com and cast your votes there. Not only that, but one Locked On fan is going to win a 12-month subscription to Built, be a full year of getting the best bars and puffs delivered directly to your door from our friends at Built Bar. So you got to try Built, my friends. They're absolutely incredible protein bars. I'll say it once, I'll say it again. They are the best tasting protein bars that I have ever had. Go to builtmarchmadness.com to place your vote there. And also, while you're at it, get to built.com, place your vote, and cast your ballot, as well as ordering your latest Built bars. Use the promo code LOCKEDON15 for 15% off your order. Once again, promo code LOCKEDON15 at built.com for the best tasting protein bars on the market, and do it with our friends at Built Bar. Today's show is also brought to you by our friends over at UCCU. They have been with us for a few months now. And the best part is right now is the perfect time to open a low-rate home equity line of credit from our friends at UCCU. Over time, the value of your home goes up, and as you make payments on the balance you owe, that number goes down. That space in between is what they call equity, and it's yours, my friends. A UCCU home equity line of credit can put that equity directly to work for you, like finishing your basement or yard, or raising your home's value, or paying off higher interest loans and getting out of debt faster, helping with college and weddings, or just having that peace of mind knowing that you have a low rate line of credit ready for whatever and whenever, my friends. UCC will also provide you with their very own home equity Visa card, giving you instant access to your equity. If you already have a home equity line with another banking institution, just refinance with UCCU and save. To learn more or to start your application today, visit uccu.com or stop by any branch and talk to them there. That's UCCU. Love where you bank. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. You guys are absolutely phenomenal. Cannot thank you guys enough for your support. If you want to get caught up on everything that happened in the weekend in March Madness, I would encourage you guys to check out our brand new podcast here, Locked On College Basketball. You guys are making waves. Isaac Shade and Andy Patton bringing everything you know on and off the court. Hear from big name experts, coaches, and players throughout the college basketball landscape. That's Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. All right, time now to let you hear a one-on-one conversation I had with Naisa Mahe. Now, this is a guy who's been around BYU for quite some time. Had a great opportunity to talk about him talk to him about his health, his strength. He's put up some incredible numbers in the weight room, and you'll hear that as part of this conversation, and also what he hopes to accomplish in his remaining time as a BYU Cougar. So without further ado, here you go, Naisa Mahe with myself right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. You're a guy who's been through multiple health things. You had the blood clot, you battled through that. What has kept you going through all of the issues you've had in the past health-wise?
For the most part, it's just been, I just have a lot of love for the game. Mm-hmm. I feel like I have a lot to give to the game, and a lot of this has been coming from the motivation of just doing it for not only myself but for my family and these boys. Mm-hmm. I mean, these guys motivate me every day to get better, do that my 111th every day. So that's pretty.
You're a guy, and I've known you since high school. I covered you in high school, and you were a weightlifter back in high school. But you made the rounds on social media the other day. It was 600 plus pounds squat the other day.
Oh, yeah.
Like, did you realize that it was going to go as viral as that was going to go?
Oh, man, no, I didn't. I told him to crop it. People don't know. It might be, but I didn't expect that at all. But, we're just, all of us over here, we got a lot of heavy lifters over here. Mm-hmm. I just happen to have been the one to be up on the camera, but we got a lot of strong boys on the team.
Well, we also had Josh Larson. It wasn't like 400 some odd pounds.
Oh yeah, like 470, 465, yeah.
So, has that been an emphasis this offseason, like just in terms of, because I know the strength and conditioning has been revamped. They obviously brought in new strength coaches. You have Dr. Main and Colby Clausen working with you guys. How much has changed in that regard?
A lot of it is more speed and strength emphasis. Yeah. It's different than what we've been running, the past couple of years, but it's better for the good, and they're getting us in shape. They're getting us better, strong, more agile. I feel, and we just got to trust the process because I know they're putting us in the right direction.
Now, you're working with Coach Pua now as your defensive tackles coach. How are you enjoying working with him so far?
I love him as a coach, as a mentor. He's just like a father figure to us. He's pushing us in the right direction. Everything that he comes with, the whole culture and mentality that he emphasizes for us, it's exactly what the D-line needs. We need, take it to the next level. And he's the guy for the job. So just happy for him to be our coach, and happy to be under him.
Did you know much about his background as a player, both at Utah and in the NFL before he came here?
I knew of him.
Yeah.
I knew of him, but not as much as I did when he first came down. That guy's a legend.
Good player.
Yeah, 7-8 years in the league.
Uh-huh.
Coaching, coaching at Navy, coaching at Utah, and we're the next team up, and he freaking love that guy. All of us would do anything for that guy.
How much has the, philosophy and scheme for you as the defensive tackle changed with this new defense?
Obviously, we ran more of a 3-down front, nose tackle. As far as scheme-wise, it is a change, but we're happy with the changes that have been made, and we feel like if we just stick to the playbook and understand our role, it'll take us a long way. So,
what is the biggest goal or goals that you guys have during spring that you guys want to accomplish as a defense?
As a spring, first is getting down the defense.
Yeah.
Also the chemistry. We focus a lot about trying to be a band of brothers. Mm-hmm. I feel like you can have the most talented people on the team, but if you're not close and not connected, it's kind of everyone's on different levels. All of us want to be on the same level. So as far as that, getting in the playbook and just having big love for each other, I feel like that'll take us a long stride into going to summer training and then obviously fall.
How has Coach Hill changed this defense philosophy-wise, attitude-wise, just overall?
His mentality, it's a dog mentality. Mm-hmm. He expects a lot out of us, mm-hmm. but that's because he believes in us, and that's one thing I love about Coach Hill. Always pushing us to be our best self, being optimal level, and so everything under him, we trust him, and we're excited to see where he takes us.
If I'm not mistaken, this will be your last season, eligibility-wise. Is the goal the NFL? What's your end goal here?
Yeah, man, you put in so much time and effort into all of this. You have to For me, that's the goal. That's the next goal. Obviously, I got to get myself right, get in the playbook. But that's the goal of our coaches, is to take us to the next level, because we put so much time and effort into everything we've done over here. So yeah, that would be the next.
There you go. Naisa Mahe. Cannot thank him enough for taking the time to join us right here on the podcast. Always good to get his thoughts on all things BYU because, like I said, he's a veteran guy, but you heard him talk about the fact he's just got a love for the game. That's what's kept him going throughout all the different health challenges he has faced in his BYU career. And I actually think the new defense for him, this is my personal take, I think the new look defense, the way the BYU defensive line is expected to play under Jay Hill's leadership, it actually fits a guy like Naisa Mahe's skill set better than the previous setup did. That's just my personal opinion. We'll see how it ultimately pans out on the field this fall, but really, really like what Naisa had to say about his future and what he hopes to accomplish in his remaining time as a BYU football player. All right, coming up next, we'll round out this edition of the show with some updates on BYU basketball. We have another player entering the transfer portal. Shouldn't be all that big of a surprise. And also a look back at how the weekend went for BYU sports. We'll get to all of that here in mere moments. First, a word on our friends over at FanDuel. FanDuel has been with us for months now, my friends. They are the official sportsbook partner of Locked On. The best part is the tournament is heating up, and now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, which is America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers are getting what they call a no-sweat first bet, which gives you bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. All you got to do is just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything in March Madness, NBA hoops, or even spring baseball. Whatever you're looking for, our friends at over at FanDuel have it for you guys. You can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drain and a million other prop bets out there. The best part is FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with a same game parlay. Don't miss out on your chance to get your no sweat first bet from our friends at FanDuel. Let's go to FanDuel.com/locked on. That's FanDuel.com/locked on to learn more now. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you once again for making us here on Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. You guys are absolutely awesome. It's actually been a really, really good month for us here in the month of March, and thank you for your support. Downloading, watching, rating, reviewing, subscribing, all the different things you guys do to help build this community and this podcast. You guys are absolutely awesome, and our goal here is to continue to grow it as we go along here. We're 4.5 years into this venture. I've been doing this podcast. I've posted, I think I looked it up the other day, nearly 1,250 different episodes. That's an average of almost 300 shows a year. It's so much fun to do, but I truly appreciate your guys' support, and thank you for making us a part of your day. All right, a couple of things before we go on today's show. Let's start off with the women's basketball program. They opened up playing the WNIT on Friday against Rice and fell behind 10-0 early on in this game and just never were able to complete the rally to get back into it, losing 71-67 to bow out of the WNIT in the first round of the tournament. BYU finishes with a sub-500 record, a little bit disappointing there, but BYU will now be looking to the offseason. The nice part for what Amber Whiting did in her first year at BYU is, yes, the record wasn't stellar, but it was a little bit of a rebuild, obviously, trying to get things back under control. But the recruiting class that BYU women's basketball has put together on paper looks like one of the best recruiting classes BYU has ever had. And I was having a conversation with a person who is a little more in tune with what's going on in the women's basketball scene, had a great chat with them. And they said, Coach Whiting, the one thing she will bring is energy and just an absolute want to get out on the recruiting trail and bolster this BYU lineup. It's nothing against the former staff, they said, but it's just there's a new energy, I guess you could say, with this BYU women's basketball team, and we'll see what happens. But a decent first campaign for Coach Whiting, but obviously that recruiting class coming in should help them get to be maybe a little more competitive as they make the transition to the Big 12 now. All right, a couple of the notes from the weekend that was in BYU sports. BYU baseball had an interesting weekend over the weekend. Dropped 2 of 3 at LMU in LA. BYU is not off to a great start this season in baseball, but hopefully they can rally a little bit. They'll be back in action tomorrow as they welcome UVU to Miller Park. BYU softball team had their weekend went very, very good. They had actually swept their doubleheader on Saturday against Idaho State, winning 10-1 and 12-0 in 5 innings apiece, making quick work of the Bengals. So BYU softball off to a good start. And obviously, when it comes to BYU, they also are looking at it. I closed the wrong pane. Dang it. I hate when I do that, talking about different things on BYU side of things. But let me see if I can find this real quick. Let's pull this back up. Okay, maybe it didn't come back up. Regardless, the nice part for BYU is they continue to kind of plod forward here with baseball and softball. They're going to get to the point where they're actually hosting more home series than road series and going out on the road as much as they have been. Obviously, now conference play has already begun for BYU baseball. Softball will be starting very shortly. We'll see what happens for both of them, but it should be an interesting year because, we've talked about, the West Coast Conference, it's their final campaigns in that conference. Obviously, trying to gear up, get ready for Big 12 play. I think BYU baseball, in particular, this year might take their lumps a little bit in the hopes that those younger players that have had a pretty good seasons so far, they can carry BYU a little bit further on in the back half of the regular season for baseball, but we'll see what happens. It's not been a great start to the season record-wise for BYU baseball, but I know Coach Pratt and his squad, they'll continue to scrap. That's one thing about this BYU baseball team. It seems like every time I either tune in or have been checking on their box scores, they're just a team that they rarely, it seems like, let go of the rope. They have always kind of stuck with it, and we'll see what happens the rest of the way for BYU. All right, final thing before we go on today's show is we've been looking back at all of these games in BYU's independent history in football, and it's a fun way to finish off the show because it's kind of a march down memory lane. Friday, we ran out of time on the podcast to talk about this game, but BYU, obviously, after the injury to Taysom Hill, you lose that game against Utah State. It's disappointing, but then you have to go to UCF, and obviously BYU is now breaking in a new starting quarterback. Christian Stewart is the guy for BYU. His first career start for BYU wasn't necessarily the greatest game across the board for BYU, but he did his part, I felt like. And that this was a game BYU went to UCF. Obviously, UCF had come to BYU in 2013, and BYU made the trek to Orlando to play down there. And UCF actually rallied late in this one to pull it from BYU because in many ways, BYU controlled this game. And it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't a pretty game for the Cougars, but Justin Holman threw a 4-yard touchdown pass to William Standback on the first possession of overtime to lift UCF to a 31-24 win over BYU. That win gave UCF a 3-2 record, and BYU dropped to a 4-2 record after losing to Utah State the previous week. Christian Stewart had a 4th down pass that fell complete in the end zone that ended the game for BYU. But like I said, in your first career start, a guy that's not expected to play a ton for BYU in the 2014 season, I thought Christian Stewart did as much as he possibly could have. 22 of 37, 153 yards, 3 touchdowns against 1 interception. I'm not sure how much more you're going to ask for in that game. Jamal Williams was not available in this game. He actually only had 1 carry for 1 yard. I believe he got injured, if I recall correctly, in this one. So that obviously hurt BYU's chances in this game. But it's just one of those things, is there was like a pall kind of cast over this team when it came to this period of the 2014 season. I remember covering this and thinking, man, this team is just, they haven't recovered quite yet from that injury to Taysom Hill. And obviously that was going to take some time for them to get over. We'll talk more about their game after this one, because you lose 31-24 in overtime. You're like, all right, shake it off, see what you can do, get back at it, and you return home to host an Oklahoma team. Excuse me, not an Oklahoma team. Oklahoma, that's in the Big 12. Came home to host Nevada. This was a Thursday game at UCF, so it was a very quick turnaround from Utah State getting down to UCF, but you had some extra time off to work on that offense a little bit, getting back in town as you welcome Nevada to Lavelle Edwards Stadium. We'll talk about that one tomorrow. But for first career starts, as far as they go, Christian Stewart, I think, did his part, but like I said, it wasn't meant to be. UCF rallies late. They were the better team on the day, and as such, BYU struggled and fell to 4-2. But let's put it this way: the fall from a 4-0 start was just about halfway to the bottom, it felt like, of the well, and we'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of the podcast. Cannot thank you guys enough for the time checking out the show, downloading us, rating and reviewing it. Like I said, all that stuff you guys do to support this podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen. Now go make your second listen to our friends over the Locked On Big 12 podcast. Josh Neighbors does a great job covering everything going on in the Big 12 conference. How did the weekend go for the conference and the NCAA tournament? Get caught up on that. What's new in football? He's got all of it. Check it out on YouTube, and also check it out wherever you get your podcast. So until tomorrow, my friends, have a great rest of your day. This has been the Locked On Cougars podcast. See ya.